Hey guys, I'm Nurgle Snurgle, and this is Diary of a Wargamer. I'm gonna level with you guys. I had a couple takes with Blood God team, and we talked about the aftermath of the game we had on Wednesday. And 3 times, none of them worked. It was either we were out of focus, and my favorite was we weren't wearing microphones. But that is what it is. It almost made me want to just end it, but the show must go on. There's going to be plenty of more battle reports, but we had a great conversation. We just talked about some mistakes. We talked about some strengths and some highlights, and I wish I could share that with you guys, but it's taught me to have a checklist, make sure everything is flowing and running smoothly. I really hope this one's working. I'm sorry about that, but it will help me to be better in the future, and I actually quite enjoyed it. In the beginning, I didn't do a lot of battle report, what do you guys call it? Refreshments? I don't know. When I was playing the games, I was always in the moment because there's so much to remember, there's so much to do. So there would be times where I'd be playing the game and I would just forget everything. Just everything afterwards. So it was hard to learn from mistakes because I was so caught up in my head learning the rules and trying to remember them. But the more I play, the better player I become, the more I can remember things. So until next time, I will have more battle report aftermath chit chats with Blood God team in the future. But today I'm going to be talking about a little bit of a sensitive subject. We all know about it. We all kind of do it to a certain extent. Recently in my local Warhammer chat, we were discussing about cheating. And some points came up. There were some terms I had never heard about, including rubber ruler. Honestly, the first thing that popped in my head was, oh, they're bending the rules, of course. But then I've clarified that, no, they're bending the measurements. Obviously, that makes more sense. So it actually got me thinking that that'd be actually an interesting thing to research and to talk about on camera with you guys, and maybe I'll learn some new things and learn some terms and find ways to spot players like that. When I was doing some research just earlier, there were some things that I guess you could say I'm a culprit for, especially in the beginning where I read the rules fast and thought they were a certain way, or sometimes the models would get caught on my sleeve and they would move. They were not intentional. And I think that is the key to these cheating bad habit tactics. Are they just in it to win, or is it a mistake? So I'm gonna get some coffee going and sit down, organize my notes, and I'll come back and we can go over the list together. So I got my list, and in a great orderly fashion, I have 7 listed here. So the first one on my list is base jumper, base jumping. I've heard this before, and when I first started to play Warhammer, it was one of the first things I learned through actually D6 Evolution on how to properly measure your model moving. This base jumping is when they measure the front of the base and then the model exceeds the measuring tape's measurement. At first it's really confusing, but through practice and seeing how it looks visually, it makes sense. So what you want to do is measure the front of the base, and you want to make sure that your model is within that measurement. So before the little metal knob. So this could also be associated with another term called rubber ruler. Previously I explained like I thought it was bending the rules, but this is when the ruler kind of just bends at their will. And it can also be verbally, where they're adding or even subtracting inches from you. They could say like, oh, you need a 5-inch charge when you only need a 4. I've yet to come across this because I like to measure all my models. In the beginning, I just suggest measuring all your models. So the next one, I kind of just made up a name, but that is a dice sticker. And that's just someone that manipulates the dice. That's someone that fast rolls all the hits, doesn't let you see, picks those up, and then gets into the wounds, doesn't let you see that, and tells you, oh, you gotta take 18 wounds. What just happened? They also like to claim successes before you can even see the results. I've yet to come across this. I don't even know how to figure out if it is or not, but weighted dice. I don't know what they look like. I don't know if there are people that use them, but I've heard of this term. If you use weighted dice, don't. That's awful. Another pet peeve of mine is using dice that aren't easily readable. And through streaming, I've actually realized how important the look of the dice is. Or someone DM'd me on Instagram and showed me the worst dice. I thought it was actually the Death Guard dice with those pus balls. Come on, the 5s and the 6s look the same. But it's actually squig dice. They're squishy, they bounce. The 6, I guess, are teeth, and then the rest of them are scales. The numbers rub off over time. So what's the point? I guess GW thought that the dice needed lore, so let's make squig dice the most chaotic dice there are. So be wary about what kind of dice you're using. Can you easily read it? Can your opponent easily read it from afar? We don't want to cheat people because of dice. This game is dice, so make sure your dice are easily readable. Also, let your opponent see the results as well. So the next one on my list I have is like a nudger, a pusher, someone that when they measure with the measuring tape and they're really close to the models, and then their finger just kind of pushes the model just a little bit closer to get that charge that they wanted. This can be a little bit of a tricky one. There's sometimes where the models are so spiky, and sometimes my sleeves get caught in them. And if you're intentionally doing this, try not to. It's just a game. I know you want that extra inch. Next one I have on the list is a rules lawyer. This is someone that just knows all the rules, but fails to have a book with them. I always do, and I suggest everybody to have a rule book with them. Take it wherever they go, even if it's casual, just because there will always be a discussion over rules. There will always be confusion, not just on your part, but maybe your opponent, maybe they just don't know. It's best to see the wording of whatever you guys are discussing about. And then the next example is something that I suffered from, Blood God team has suffered from, everybody does, and that's half reading the rules. And especially during tournaments where you're like under pressure, you quickly read the rules, and sometimes there's that little phrase, there's that little word, there's that little comma and or slash that negates what you've wanted to do. So I suggest reading fully. Even read it out to yourself, understand some of the terms, the wholly within, the within, partially within. So just to negate any confusion, make sure you have your books with you. The next one I have is speed freaks. Now, this isn't just someone that goes really fast. It is, but it can also be someone who slow plays. And we've all heard this term, slow plays. So you've got someone on one side of the spectrum where they are slow playing. When you're in a tournament and there's 3 hours on the clock and they need extra time, they can see that you can win in the late game. You may get cheated out because they're thinking and they're humming and hawing. This can be a little bit of a hard one to detect because you don't know if someone's new. I've played someone who was very fresh to the game. He was a bit of an older gentleman. He was playing Iron Hands, and this is in 8th edition when Iron Hands was tea. As much as he didn't know his rules or he like fumbled through all of his cards, I wanted to give him the benefit of a doubt that let's still have an enjoyable game. He did win. I think we only got to turn 2, and I accepted it. Like, it wasn't, again, at the end of the day, it's just a game. So if you find that you're with someone who's slow playing, especially when it comes to toughness and strengths and understanding the math with that, help your opponent out. When they say, okay, I'm strength 5, and you go, oh, I'm tough 4, so you're wounding on 3s, and that repetition will help your opponent. Next in the speed freaks, we have fast players. That's someone that just bombarding you with so much information and talking miles a minute and kind of forcefully saying like, come on, like, okay, what's your wounds? Okay, let's go, okay. And as a fresh player, it can be very daunting. There can be a lot of pressure on that to have an answer. If you find that you want to fast play, understand who your opponent is. Are they struggling? Do they need a little bit of help with math? This is a game that I've realized is, to a certain extent, is to help one another out, because the better you can make them, the better you become, and you can just elevate your local community. It makes for a fun environment around you. Next I have is take-backers. These are the type of people that accept that there's going to be a charge on a 6, and when they roll a 5, re-roll and get that 5, they'll come back and remeasure. Even though that they accepted the 6, they'll want to make sure it's in their favor. Again, another tough one to determine whether they were cheating or not. And lastly, number 7 on the list I have is silencers. These are people that don't speak. This game is all about communication. I remember my first tournament I went to, my jaw was so sore from talking, and it still gets pretty sore. It's getting better. I think I'm growing those muscles, but you're talking so much. You should be talking constantly throughout the game. So silencers are ones that do abilities, same with rolling, same with just like they'll go through a phase without telling the opponent what just happened, and then before you know it, you're having to roll 23 wounds. You don't know where that was from, who the targets are, and it can be very awkward and confusing. So if you're gonna play, please communicate with your opponent. It is detrimental, it is the game, it is key. From doing the streams, I'm getting better at communicating. I understood in the beginning it was very important, but as a new player, there's so much going on. I like to be a silent thinker, so I'll study the table and try to imagine my positioning. I had to train myself to talk more. It can be very nerve-wracking and anxious to talk to one another, but this is all learning. These aren't just like, if you do this, you're a bad player. These are just reminders of what not to do. Again, I'm no saint in any of this. I know Blood God Team's no saint. I know all my friends are no saints at this. And I'm sure that we've all played people who are like this. Now, if they start checking this off every game, every tournament, every opponent, it needs to be addressed. It needs to be stopped. Because at the end of the day, it's just a 3D super laser chess game, and nobody likes to play cheaters. I'm sure cheaters don't even like to play with other cheaters. So some advice I could share is to make it a point at the game. If you notice someone who's doing it, you could also play dumb. You can say like, oh, I didn't know that Dreadnought could do that. Oh, could you show me in the rules where it says that? That's actually a pretty cool thing. I want to remember that. Communicate at the table with your opponent. Don't get silent. Don't get angry. If you find that it keeps happening, call a teal or document it happening. Talk to some friends. I would say don't personally talk to the cheater alone, even if it's a friend. Make sure it's in the game because they could just easily get over defensive and very offended that you are bringing that type of talk outside of the game. So make it apparent during the game, ask them to show their dice, just be courteous, and hopefully they can maybe take a hint, or if it's a new person, grow some good habits in them. We all want to win, and if they think they can get away with it, they probably will try. So if you've ever had an experience with a cheater, you can let me know in the comments down below. Let's have a conversation about it. I like to hear about your experiences if you have any, or if you have any tips about how to deal with one, let me know. Let us know. So again, I'm Nurgle Snurgle, and this was a fun episode. I got to do some research, got to learn some new things, and I hope to do more, obviously. So thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Diary of a Wargamer. If there's any topics that you'd like to see from me, you can also say that down in the comments down below. So that's it for me. I'm signing off. I'm gonna go edit this. I've got the coffee rush, so I'm gonna go edit this and upload it quite soon. So you guys take care and love you all. Mwah. Cheese.
Just a little itty bitty.
I'm totally filming that.